Hey guys, Kid here of Burn 1 with the Shadowverse Evolved channel, bringing you some day 1 set 2 deck lists that are worth trying out. So if you want to experiment a little bit, this is a good list to try out because it does and use a card from set 1 that didn't see any play really, but now it can have see play and make some really cool plays with it. Of course, that card I'm talking about is Pompous Princess. We'll just get right into the deck profile and show you what it's like. All right, so this is the deck here. A little different than what people are normally looking at. Of course, we still play all the same powerful cards from set 1, so I'm just going to run through the list really quick. This time around, we're actually playing 3 Bell Ringer Angels in this list because we need to pack our lower curve, especially our 1 curve. All our 1-drops, we need a good amount of them because we want to take advantage of the main card in this list, which is Pompous Princess. Of course, we always play the one of Bell Ringer Angel Evo because it's really good value. It only takes up 1 slot, and it stops other aggro decks from going too hard on us early on. Next, 3 made leaders. Obviously, card is really amazing. One thing that's really good about Swordcraft is that it has the ability to usually the search, so it makes their deck very consistent. Made leader being a very huge staple to that. You can find a lot of really powerful tools in this deck using Made leader. Next, 3 quick bladers. He's our homeboy here. He also is featured in the Evo deck this time around with one of the Quick Blader Evo, which is really powerful for this list. Like I said, we're getting a lot of value off of these 1-drops through our Pompous Princess, so we need to have that good curve, and Quick Blader being really basically a 3-drop 3/3 is really good. We play 2 swordsmen. This is one of our ways to interact with our opponent's board. It being a 1-drop still is really powerful because it has the 2 power. 1 and 2 power is essentially the same when it comes to removal in this game, other than like dealing with Angelic Barrage. So he's still like better than the vanilla ninja, just because it has some kind of ability that affects the board and lets us trade into things easily when people don't want to engage their units. So it's a really good tech card that I think people are going to figure out very soon that this is very powerful, and you'd rather play this than ninja. Of course, if you like the ninja, you can just throw this in there, cut whatever you like or whatever, or maybe just add it in because you do need a lot of you need a lot of 1-drops in this list for it to go off consistently. Next, this is another staple for this list. It's part of the reason this list can work as well as it can. Is Gunner Maid Sarah. So she has the ability Fanfare. When she comes into play, search your deck for a princess traded follower and add it to your hand. We play a couple different princesses in here. Obviously, Pompous Princess, which is what the deck is mostly about here, especially for the early aggression. And then we do play a one of Aurelia from set 1. This has Princess Trade as well, so this is a good tech card we can search out if we draw into a second copy of Gunner Maid Saria. Next, I play 3 Veteran Lancers instead of playing the Latham. If you like Latham more, you can play Latham in there. But personally, Veteran Lancer having Ward is still a 2/3. It's roughly the same power line and everything, but you get Ward compared to Latham. I think this impacts the board a little bit more than Latham, but obviously, if you want to be like as aggressive as possible, Latham is probably better in this slot. But I value the Ward a lot, especially if we're going to play into a lot of other aggro decks. We want them to trade into us and not us trade into them. That way, we can outrace them, obviously. 3 of Floral Fencer. I don't think we really need to talk about this card. This is like the identity of Sword, essentially. This card is amazing. We play 3 Gemstaff Commanders. Once again, this is a card that lets us search out any of our Swordcraft followers. So very solid card to be playing as a 3 of because it search out anything we need when we need it. Novice Trooper, 3 of aggressive, 3-drop, 3/3 storm. You know, what more can you want? Especially in combination with Leonidas when we get there. It's very, very powerful. Next, Pompous Princess, which is kind of the key figure of this deck. The whole reason we can run this deck as it is because of Gunner Maid. So Pompous Princess has the effect that when she comes into play, she has Fanfare. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck. You may put up to 1 play point follower from among them into the field, and then put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order, which means any of these 1-drops we just top deck is super powerful. So we can get really good lines early on to be as aggressive as possible. So you can do things like turn 1 Quick Blader, turn 2 Gunner Maid into search Pompous Princess, turn 3 Pompous Princess into top decking like a Bell Ringer, putting that on board. You can be aggressive with that and then engage the Bell Ringer, and then suddenly they have to get through a Bell Ringer to get to your cards if they don't have any type of spell or something to get through. They're going to have more than 1 fall on the board. which is really good. So this lets you go wide and really aggressive by turn 3. It's essentially kind of like build your own floor fencer starting from the beginning, which is, I think, really cool and really fun. Next, we run a 2 of Albert, 11 Saber. This is one of our key pieces to kind of close out the game. Well, the one thing about this card is the Evo form, which we play as a 1 of. It has Storm and then Strike stand this card, so it gives it the ability to restand as long as, or only once per turn once Strike goes off. So you can essentially hit your opponent for 6 immediately once you Evo this card. And then also on Evo, it takes no clash damage. So if need be, if you Evo, you can trade into 2 things and this will still be fine and not take any damage, which is really, really good. But most of the time, we're comboing this to close out games, usually with Leonidas' Royal Banner, which we'll talk about when we get there. Play a 3 of Amelia. This card is like super huge value because once we go do our 1, 2, 3 line, if we have this, we can, if they answer that board, you can drop Amelia and either play a card for free or deal 4 damage to something to remove it. So if they don't deal with your board, you drop Amelia to get rid of their ward so you can go back to face again. Otherwise, you can do plays like Amelia, free play Floor Fencer, and then like use a Evo point to Evo it, and then you have a full board again. That's incredibly spooky. That's like 10 worth of stats on the board immediately, which is very, very strong. Whenever like cards like this that have dual abilities that are both very powerful, I really like a lot. Next, Advent Blader. We play it as a 1 of. You can search it out with Gem Staff or anything like that, or even our Maid Leader if need be. What's really good about this card, it has very high value because we run the Evo as a 1 of. On Evo, you get to search 2 officer traded followers. So most of the time, you're going to be getting Novice Troopers or Floor Fencers. I didn't check everything on here. I think there's a couple other officer traded characters in here, though they're not very powerful. I think Swordsman and Quickblader are officer traded. You'd have to double check. But the main searches we're looking for like double Novice Trooper or Novice Trooper Floor Fencer if we expect for a board wipe coming up after this turn. And then it evolves into a 5/5, which is very powerful. It's still very scary to deal with. You can just drop this on turn 5, essentially. It's a very solid card overall. It gives us more hand advantage too, which is really good for us. So since we're playing Gunmaid, we got to be playing Aurelia. She's a princess traded follower for us to search as a silver bullet for some matchups. For example, like in the mirror match or into like force or something like that, we can always get her fanfare effect off, which is choose an enemy leader. If they have 3 or more cards in the field, this gets +2/+2 and gains aura. So it becomes hard for them to deal with. It's a 6/8 on board, which is insane and really annoying, as well as it still has rush, an SL, and ward. So once you get rid of something, they still have to deal with the ward and they can't use any spells to get rid of it. Next, 2 of Alexander. Card is super great. This is like our 6-drop clear the board because it has rush and SL. So whenever this card deals clash damage, it restands itself. So you can just like go 1, 2, 3, just remove 3 things, and then a lot of times this lives with like 1 or 2 health afterwards. So you have like a 5/2 on board that just cleared the board, and they still have to respond to this thing. It's a very, very powerful staple within Sword, moving on from set 2. I'm not very sure how far past set 2 this card gets played, but in set 2, this card is insanely good. Finally, one of the cards that is going to be quite annoying for a lot of people, and I think one reason a lot of people are going to be playing, I believe, Execution to get rid of this card. So Leonidas, we play the Evo of it as a 2 of here. So on Evolve, you choose an enemy follower, you deal 5 damage to it and to this card itself, putting it down to a 6/2 on Evolve. This card has Last Words, put a Leonidas Resolve into the field. A Leonidas Resolve is an 8 play point royal commander amulet, which has the effect whenever a royal follower enters your field, it gets +3/+3 and rush, which means once that resolves, if they can't deal with it, usually your opponent's dead. Anything your opponent can put on the board, you can deal with it because everything here essentially is, except for Bellringer Angel, is a royal follower. So immediately you're going to get the +3/+3 and rush, which means you can start removing things immediately. You don't have to wait a turn. But the big thing about this banner going out, if they don't answer it, is that double Novice Trooper is 12 damage face. Albert Evo is 12 damage face. Like a lot of the storm, like even this by itself is a 4/4 face damage immediately for 1 play point. It's very powerful and very scary. If you ever get a Leonidas banner out and you just like resolve Floral Fencer and stuff like that, it gets absurd. Your power gets absurd. So this is a big reason uh, Swordcraft becomes so powerful in set 2 and becomes one of the top decks to be playing in general. So a lot of times you're going to have to think about Leonidas and be worried about him. But yeah, this deck is a lot of fun. It's really aggressive. It goes very wide, very fast early on, especially if you get the perfect line of going one drop into Gunner Maid, into Search Pompous Princess, into Pompous Princess, find a one drop off the top 5. And then after that, you can like Flora Fencer or Amelia on turn 4. Insane rush power. It gets really aggressive, very fast, very early, which is a lot of fun. In my opinion, I enjoyed it a lot. And like sometimes you high roll and hit a Bellringer Angel after building a board, and they now have to use spells or something to get through, because usually at that point, your opponent won't really have a lot of stuff going on after that because you've went so wide so fast. It's also worth considering if you want to be like a little bit more lower curve aggressive. Maybe you want to look at keeping a Royal Banner in this list instead of playing something like Leonidas or something like that. Though I think that's not as powerful as Leonidas, because Leonidas can just end the game instantly. Royal Banner is still an option for a deck like this because you go wide with such small curve of one drops. Getting that 1/1 out earlier could be the difference between ending the game sooner rather than later, and maybe you never actually need the Leonidas on the board to close out the game. Well, with all that being said, this is a deck list I think is worth trying out, experimenting with. You got to use some new cards and old cards that didn't get played before, which is really cool. So you can try some new things out, worth experimenting around with. Hopefully you guys like this deck. Let me know what it's like in the comments if you do end up testing this list out. I think personally it's a lot of fun, a good list to bring to your locals, and probably pop off and win the locals early during your day 1 events. Other than that, I hope to see you guys in the next video. Later.